YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Wilderness. So, I hope for today you guys got a flashlight and you're not claustrophobic, because things are about to get a little dark. Alright, so if you haven't already guessed it, we're going to be doing some spelunking today. And I already got myself a nice cave behind me so we can get in there and ready to explore. Now, we're going to try to take this video in a couple different segments because obviously a cave isn't just one entity. You have the outer cave, you have the cave entrance itself, and then you have the actual cave. So we're going to look at those three different parts and see what kind of different Yu-Gi-Oh! Monsters we can find. And starting off, let's just look around right outside the cave mouth and see what we can find. Alright, so the cool thing about cave mouths is you have a lot of organic matter accumulating on the outside. So there's plenty of stuff that can be taken advantage of by a lot of different Yu-Gi-Oh! Monsters. So right over here, right off the back, here in the leaf litter, a Bajingi centipede. Haven't seen one of these guys in quite a while, but back in the day when they were a lot more prevalent, you could see these guys quite often. So normally what these little critters would do is that they would actually remove themselves from the ground, from underground in the graveyard area, and they would be able to target and remove resources on the opponent's side of the field. So really good defensive / aggressive technique that it has, but nowadays you don't see it too much. But that's the cool thing about caves. A lot of times these are a more stable environment, so the temperature and stuff doesn't vary as much. So you're more likely to see some older archetypes just because not much changes. So let's keep on looking around, and we'll put this back because it's always good to make sure that when you find something in the wild, you return to where it was originally found. And like, look at this. Here on the moss, growing on the rock, found a TG tank grub. So yeah. If you just pay attention, you can find a lot of cool stuff crawling around on caves. But let's get a little closer to the cave mouth itself. So another really cool thing about caves is that you can just look around and appreciate the geology and how much time it took to form these formations and just these systems that are underground. Because honestly, the amount of time with wind, erosion, and water dripping through, it takes years. Not just years, decades, millennia, you name it. A lot longer than a lot of us will ever live to see. And then sometimes you can find some really cool stuff that's formed over time, right? It's real pretty. Too bad I'm not a geologist, so I don't really know too much about this kind of stuff. Anyway, it's just a rock, right? Let's go back inside that cave. So as we're getting closer to the cave mouth itself, you can notice that you have a lot of water running down the rock, and then also on that water you can have stuff like algae growing and also bacterial mats, and it's really cool. So like if we get a closer look, you can notice how like you have all these different bacteria and moss growing on the rock, and it's really cool how they can just make their home right here on the side of the rock just because there's water there. So pretty sure most of you guys thought the outer cave was pretty cool, but you're really interested on the inner cave. Now before we do that, we're going to do a few little preps before we can head inside, and then once those are done, it's time to go spelunking. So back in a sec. Alright, so we're inside. Now let's start exploring the cave and see what we can find in here. I think we just found something right here at the cave mouth. Check it out. There we go. What do we got? So, it looks like we found a digital bug centipede. Once again, as you notice, the species change as you get in deeper inside the cave. Different species live at different depths. And caves, being more stable, you're more likely to find some rarer stuff that you're not usually going to see in the standard meta-climate. So yeah, when was the last time you seen a digital bug, huh? Well, let's go ahead and put them back on the cave wall. So as we get deeper and deeper into the cave, you can notice on the walls, a lot of times all these cracks and crevices can provide habitat for different species. So here we have a web soldier. Like, as I said, you're not going to see a lot of these guys. And if you guys can tell, you can kind of see his webbing that he's made through the cracks. And a lot of times he's going after these other unique species that are making their homes here inside the cave itself. And if we look up, we can find some really cool stuff, hopefully. And I think I see something. And it looks like it's real cool. So let's see if we can't get a closer look at what we've got up here. I got it. Got it. Nice. It's a dark bat. Haven't seen one of these guys in quite a while. And it makes sense that they'd make their home here in this cavern. Stable climate, safe from predators, and also provide some darkness until moonrise comes up so they can go out and start hunting insects at night. But yeah, dark bat. Not expecting to find one of these guys. You don't really see these guys often. In fact, a lot of times people haven't seen these in over a decade. Or even more considering the fact how old this species is. But yeah, dark bat. They're a pretty cool species. And usually you can find them in the netherworld regions. And they like to use their hypersenses to navigate their environment. And in darker places where light usually isn't that great aside from what you're bringing. But anyway, we'll go ahead and release him back into the little colony that he had. Oh man, it's cramped in here, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna find something else because I'm starting to hear some noises up ahead. So check this out. Looks like we found a small colony of yellow-bellied oni. I'll try to see if we can't get a closer look. Whoa. Gotcha. Alright, so yellow-bellied oni. You don't really see this species quite often, and normally in the current metaclimate you wouldn't expect to regardless. But back in the day, you could usually tend to find these maybe around like a vampire strategy because they're a rank 4, and when an Xyz monster is summoned onto the field, oftentimes they would swarm onto the field, so it enabled further Xyz plays just because of its unique summoning requirement. But yeah, they're not very common, and it's pretty cool to see that they made themselves a nice little home in here inside this cave. But yeah, let's go ahead and see if we can't put you back up into the colony. There you go, buddy. And it's getting a little claustrophobic, right? I think let's go ahead and find our way out of the cave and get some fresh air. Alright, and that's going to do it for another episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Wilderness. And as always, please you guys remember to like and subscribe and comment down below. And also feel free to follow the Instagram account, which is also down in the description. But you guys know the drill. I'm not going to let you guys out of here without a little bit of some real-life Yu-Gi-Oh! Wilderness knowledge. Speaking of which, let's talk about caves for a second, in real life this time. Now, a lot of times when people go to visit caves, they're kind of manicured to the public in the sense that, I mean, you know, they're all real lit up. They have a natural entranceway that's been decorated in a way that's easy access for pedestrians, stairs, elevators, what have you, depending on whether it's a limestone cave or just a crag in the rock. But a lot of times when we're talking about exploring real life wild caves that aren't manicured for the public, you have to take some extra precautions in doing so. So when I mentioned earlier that I was getting myself ready for the cave, actually I want to make sure that I'm washing my boots, because a lot of animals do make their habitat inside caves, and one of the biggest threats to them is us, people. Specifically, let's talk about bats and how we can actually be detrimental to bats that live in cave systems and other different kind of sealed off areas. So, the reason why I'm bringing up bats is because a lot of bats currently in North America are being affected by what's called white nose syndrome. Now, this is a fungus that basically grows on the nasal canals and can really disrupt the bat's natural ecological processes, and you can oftentimes kind of correlate it to something similar to rabies. They're not behaving properly, their breathing's affected heavily, and it ultimately leads into death, and it is widespread. And one of the ways that it actually spreads is through people's boots, because it's a fungus, so therefore the spores can catch on to things like boots. As people do tend to walk a lot of places, the spores will get on the boots, stay on the boots, and then once someone decides to go explore a cool cave system, those spores can get off and then infect a bat host. And then, lo and behold, that poor bat now has white nose syndrome and is likely going to die unless treated otherwise. So it's very important when you go into the cave system that you're cleaning your boots, so that way you can know that when you go into this new system, you're not bringing any outside threats that may potentially harm the wildlife that live inside. Now, if you guys are interested in some bat conservation or just some cool cave info, I have some links down in the description below. Feel free to go check those out. And I do hope you guys really enjoyed today's episode. I'm going to catch you guys next time.